for choosing us. We are your home of independent, fearless, and credible journalism. Well, this afternoon we start from Parliament, where the minority is demanding the immediate dismissal of YA CEO Malik Basintali and MDF boss Hannah Bisu over what they say is their glorification of the chaos at Ablekuma North constituency rerun last Friday. Now, it will be recalled that a number of polling stations in Ablekuma North were rocked with violence, leading to several injuries. The minority say the two officials glorify the chaos which occurred, hence they must go.
The most disturbing aspect of the Ablekuma North violence is not just the brutality itself, but the deliberate endorsement and celebration of these attacks by senior government officials. For example, Dr. Hannah Bisu, Louisa Bisu, National Women's Organizer of the NDC and CEO of the Minerals Development Fund, provided perhaps the most damaging response with her statement that violence begets violence, quote, end quote, and her suggestion that the brutal attacks were somehow justified. Even more shocking is the Facebook post by Malik Basintali, Acting Chief Executive Officer of the Youth Employment Agency and Deputy National Communications Officer of the NDC, who apparently celebrated the man who attacked Honorable Mavis Hawakumsun with a disturbing declaration, and I quote, "From today, I name him the Flying Python," end quote. He shall be, quote continues, "he shall be in charge of the 5K Air Force," end quote. This grotesque celebration of violence against a former member of parliament represents a new low in Ghana's political discourse. Both officials hold senior positions in President Mahama's government, and their inflammatory rhetoric actively undermines Ghana's democratic institutions. Their words embolden further lawlessness and signal to potential perpetrators that violence will be excused, justified, and even celebrated by the governing party. The Minority Caucus demands the following actions: the immediate dismissal of violence-endorsing officials. President Mahama must immediately dismiss Dr. Hannah Louisa Bisu from her position as CEO of the Minerals Development Fund and Malik Basintali from his role as acting CEO of the Youth Employment Agency. Their celebration and justification of violence against opposition figures disqualifies them from holding any public office. This dismissal must happen to demonstrate that the government does not condone political violence. All individuals involved in the Ablekuma violence must be arrested and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. The police must provide daily updates on their investigation and arrest. There can be no impunity for those who attack our democratic process. The Ghana Police Service must conduct a thorough investigation into their security failures, including the alleged role of Chief Superintendent Lumo Frederick Sunanu. Any officers found to be complicit in the Ablekuma North violence must face immediate dismissal and criminal prosecution. President Mahama must publicly condemn the Ablekuma North violence and personally apologize to Honorable Mavis Hawakumsun, Nanekwe Friye, and all the victims of the violent attacks. His statement must be unequivocal and without any qualification or justification for the violence.
You heard the Member of Parliament for Etiwa West, Loretta Koko Asante, speaking on behalf of the minority in Parliament. They are demanding that President John Dramani Mahama dismisses two government officials. According to them, they say that that will signal his readiness to deal with the electoral violence that marred the Ablekuma North rerun. Well, let's get more on this. Join me now as Parliamentary Affairs Correspondent Kweku Asante. He joins us with details on what exactly are their key demands. Kweku, they also fault the police for what happened. What exactly are their concerns?
Well, according to the minority, it would appear that the police had lost control over the situation and they would
I seem to have lost connection to my colleague Kweku Asante, joining us live from Parliament. We're just getting his brief rundown of some of the key things that the minority are raising concerns about in Parliament today. They want the President to dismiss the YA boss as well as the Minerals Development Fund boss. And we're just reaching Kweku Asante to tell us what other concerns they're raising. Kweku, I have better connection to you now. Please make your point.
Yes, I was talking about how they talk about how the police seem to have lost control over the situation and were rather being controlled by elements within the NDC that they call NDC thugs. They expect the police to be of good behavior in the next by-election that is going to happen in Akwatia. They say they cannot countenance the continuous watching on by the Ghana Police Service as so-called NDC thugs wreak of violence on opposition elements, and they are demanding action immediately.
Raises serious questions about their preparedness and commitment to protecting our electoral process. Security personnel were overwhelmed by the perpetrators, failing to prevent these attacks on political figures, party agents, and journalists. More concerning are allegations surrounding Chief Superintendent Lumor Frederick Senanu and his potential role in facilitating these disruptions. These allegations, if substantiated, would represent a grave breach of public trust and professional duty. The police service must demonstrate that they are capable of maintaining law and order during electoral processes, or their failure will continue to undermine public confidence in Ghana's security institutions. The targeting of journalists during the Ablekuma North parliamentary rerun represents a particularly grave assault on press freedom. A Joy News reporter was physically assaulted, while GH1 TV journalist Ajekum Banahin was attacked by a police officer at the Church of Pentecost, North Odoko Polling Station 2. These attacks on media practitioners are fundamentally incompatible with democratic governance. Press freedom is a cornerstone of Ghana's democracy.
Kweku, and they're also raising other key concerns. What exactly are they saying?
Essentially, they are talking about how the next by-election that is going to happen in Akwatia is one to look at. And they say that if the Ghana Police Service does not stamp its authority, and in particular, if the President, John Dramani Mahama, does not come out to publicly condemn the activities of so-called NDC thugs and also dismiss these public officials who they allege have actually endorsed these chaos, this will signal more impunity to the persons who cause these disturbances to move to the next election grounds and do the same thing because they know there will be no consequences. They say they do welcome the Interior Minister's approach. You do recall that on Monday, the Interior Minister did speak and promised that any person who is implicated in the violence will be brought to book. They say they welcome that. Of course, they take that with a pinch of salt because they do not believe NDC government is going to go after these persons. But they want the government to signal its commitment towards dealing with some of these issues before they take root in terms of other elections that is going to go ahead. They talk about how Ghana's democracy is no longer a nascent democracy, it's a democracy that has taken steep, and they do realize that some of these things do bring the reputation of the country to disrepute. The international community are watching, and they are demanding that more and more is done on this matter to signal to the rest of the world that Ghana is not ready for such electoral violence.
Thank you, Kweku Asante. Let's explore this further and bring in Reverend Intim Fordjour, a key member of the minority. We appreciate your time here on The Pulse. We've heard from the Interior Minister give the assurances that the individuals who perpetrated these acts of violence will be arrested and made to face the law. You don't believe that this administration can deliver justice? Is that the case?
Yeah, thank you very much, Faustina. It's just rhetoric. They are not going to do it, and we are going to have to force them. CSOs will have to pick up. We all have to rise up to demand justice. It's been nearly a week since key known leading members of the NDC and government appointees clearly mobilized people on social media, clearly calling them, mobilizing 5,000, 5K men, come to Ablekuma and cause mayhem. Indeed, consistent with their calls, we saw, tax that were mobilized, non-NDC tax that were mobilized to 19 police stations who meted out the atrocious, kind of violence we saw, assaulting former ministers, assaulting candidates, assaulting people who were just going to merely cast their vote to observe elections. It's been nearly a week. We have their videos, we have their pictures. The Ghana Police Service cannot say, the Minister for the Interior cannot say, they don't know Hanabisu, they don't know Batintali, they don't know the people whose pictures and videos are in wide circulation. The Ghana Police Service, they know them very well. What arrest has been caused? What prosecution has taken place? But when the police officer who unfortunately, assaulted a journalist, immediately that same day, action was taken, and we saw that he had been interdicted. So what happened to the other tax, the tax and non-NDC government appointees who were behind the tax, who mobilized them, who clearly in evidence, which evidence again is required or needed? And so the government led by the president is demonstrating to Ghanaians that they are behind and emboldening political vigilantism, a trend that is going to fast erode the gains we've made in our democracy and which is fast becoming a security threat under NDC. It is not a trend we must condone. And so we are calling for the termination of the appointment of those non-government appointees, i.e. Basintali and Hanabisu, and federals to that. We are also calling on the immediate arrest of all the hooligans, the thugs, known faces, known NDC faces. By now, Jakpa should have stormed their houses and arrested them. So what are they doing? Are they only constituted as national security to arrest political opponents? One, clearly, they were emboldened by the NDC and brought specifically to carry out, such thuggery. It's so unfortunate how democracy is degenerating under the watch of President Mahama. Just a rerun. We all condemned any violence that took place in or associated with any elections we've had, in time past. We all condemned it. We even had President Akufo-Addo immediately constituting commission of inquiry into also West Wagon violence. And that was nothing close to what we saw in just 19 police station rerun. It is going to be recipe for disaster if we don't get this nipped in the bud, get the culprits arrested and prosecuted immediately this week, and get the government appointees who are openly emboldening these thugs dismissed ahead of Akwatia by-election. It is going to be a lot of mayhem, and that mayhem will have to be put at the doorstep of the Commander-in-Chief of the Ghana Armed Forces and who is the Chairman of the National Security Council, the President. All that will be learned at the speech because he has failed woefully to take any action to nip the excesses of the Ablekuma North rerun. And so these are demands that Ghanaians are pushing for, and I support those calls that dismissals must take place to signal its commitment and do immediate arrest and prosecution of all the facts that are taxed Honorable Howard Kumsin and Honorable Kiafriye and any other tragedy that we saw and thanks to the media, you covered it so well. So this is a test, and this week we are hoping that those arrests will take place so that any staff who will be getting themselves ready for utilization, quote unquote, by any political actor will know that there are consequences for their actions and refrain from things.
And you're pushing for the dismissal of Malik Basintali and Hanabisu, but they were not the ones who perpetrated the violence. Is it simply because they didn't sympathize with Howard Kumsin?
So what in the rerun of 19 police stations, the total, if you put all the results together, the total number of people who voted, both NDC and PP, it's not even up to 4,800. Not even up to 4,800. The people who came to vote were not up to 4,800. So what were they calling 5,000 men to go and do? 5,000 men that Basintali mobilized. What were they calling them to go and do? Please, were they police officers? Were they security officials? Were they voters? They were not. So why was he calling them with a tax, 5,000 tax? He was calling for in the rerun of just 19 police stations, which voter outturn did not exceed 4,800. Why? What was the 5,000 men needed for? And so such a person is working free. He should have been arrested as we speak. He should not only be dismissed, but be arrested and prosecuted for inciting the violence that took place, that mass, the integrity and the reputation of democracy we have won as a nation. So all these are the actions. He should not just be terminated. It is criminal to be mobilizing 5,000 men to go and and extract mayhem at just 19 polling stations. And so that is an act that should not be condoned. And as well the talk, if they indeed do not in any way sanction such atrocities, that must be the test. President Mahama must crack the whip. They must dismiss them, prosecute them, and those who mobilize them, the appointees, and for the tax themselves, they must be arrested and prosecuted with immediate effect.
And what was Hanabi's use crime?
They were all the videos that showed. Time would not allow for me to go through chronicling everybody's acts of violence and condoning and mobilization of tax. Time will not permit. They may not even be the only ones, but these ones have clearly, with the evidence abounding, and thanks to the media, you have highlighted all the atrocious things they did, and together with the attacks, and this must not go unpunished.
You say that the police failed to protect the civilians, and knowing fully that we have another by-elections in our hands in a couple of months' time, how best do you think the police can ensure the security of civilians who come out to exercise their franchise?
Clearly, I do not think it was the intention of the police to ensure the safety of the people. The videos that we saw, the approach, everything was clear. Right before their eyes, we saw how people were emboldened to engage in criminal acts. And so, for me, we have a discussion, full-scale discussion with the IGP, the Minister for the Interior, the Minister for Defense, and the National Security Coordinator later this week. And these are matters we are going to take up very seriously to ensure that certain things are corrected, and we'll put in the right measures to ensure the safety of our citizens and safeguarding the integrity of our elections that are ahead of us, particularly the impending Akwatia by-election.
Rev, stay with me because I want to pick your reaction on the story we're about to do. So please stay with us. We are picking information that government is currently awaiting financial clearance to roll out a decentralized recruitment exercise in the country's security services. President Mahama says every region will receive a fair recruitment quota, allowing people across Ghana the opportunity to serve. He was addressing residents during his thank you tour of the Western region. Let's listen to the president's plans as well to cultivate some 200,000 hectares of oil palm nationwide, with the Western North region expected to play a key role in that. Presidential Affairs correspondent Maxwell Agwagwa has more in this report.
Hundreds of residents have gathered at the Dwabusu School Park in the Western North region to welcome President Mahama as part of his nationwide thank you tour. The atmosphere is charged with excitement, with many residents reaching out for a handshake. A man in a wheelchair taps the president and requests a selfie. The president gladly agrees, crouching down to ensure the moment is captured. While the visit was to express gratitude, it was also to reconnect and engage with the people. In his address, President Mahama described the ongoing illegal mining menace Galamsey as a national emergency, calling for the immediate arrest and prosecution of individuals impersonating members of the anti-Galamsey task force.
I must be honest, this is a national emergency. The National Task Force will continue its efforts to halt illegal mining in our forest reserves and on our water bodies. I've also noted the activities of illegal anti-Galamsey task forces that go around extorting money from legitimate small-scale mining companies. I've requested that the authorities arrest and prosecute any individuals involved in this illegal anti-galamsey activity.
On cocoa, President Mahama assured farmers that under his administration, they will be paid 70% of the world market price of cocoa. He also announced that his government is awaiting financial clearance from the Finance Ministry to begin a decentralized recruitment drive into the country's security services.
We also promised to decentralize recruitment into the security services. And so we're waiting for financial clearance from the Minister of Finance. And when we get it, every region is going to have a quota to send our young people to serve in the security services.
President Mahama revealed that the Finance Ministry has released 25 million cedis to facilitate the payment of monthly allowances for assembly members nationwide.
The Minister of Finance has also released 25 million cedis for payment of allowances to assembly members for the first quarter of 2025. So assembly members, your allowances for the first quarter, which amounts to 25 million, has been sent to your district assemblies. And so you will soon receive your money.
The president added that his administration, in partnership with development agencies, will cultivate 200,000 hectares of oil palm across the country, with the Western North region playing a central role.
And these initiatives will create jobs for young people across this region. Government plans to invest in collaboration with the African Development Bank and other international partners to cultivate 200,000 hectares of oil palm across the country. The Western North region is going to play a crucial role in this project. When the time comes, I'll appeal to Nananomo to release land for us to do the oil palm program.
And on housing, President Mahama says his government is working on delivering low-cost housing for public sector workers to ensure decent and affordable accommodation for Ghana's workforce.
Under this scheme, the government will partner with workers' unions and financial institutions to construct decent, low-cost rental and rent-to-own housing units for health workers, teachers, and other public sector workers. Persons who have between 15 and 20 years to retire can apply to own one of the houses. If you want to own it where you are working, when we finish the house, you can live in it, and then you pay little by little till you own it. We will deduct it from your salary every month.
Well, government is looking at decentralizing the recruitment process into the security services, but it is also introducing the quota system. And I just want to get the brief reaction of Reverend Intim Fordjour. I also have with me Colonel Festus Akwatia joining the conversation on the phone. He's a security expert. We appreciate your time. But let me start with you, Reverend Intim Fordjour. How does the minority react to this, really? Government introducing a quota system for the recruitment process?
Yeah, so Faustina, is there any particular country that has been left out of recruitment into any security agency? The answer is no. Over the years, there's been equitable. Various administrations and various security agencies have ensured that talent have been attracted from across the length and breadth of this country. And therefore, in terms of quota system, there is that equity. In terms of the discussion around decentralizing the selection processes and taking it closer and closer to the people, that is an initiative that I would not disagree. But if one talks about a quota system to create an impression that some regions were marginalized, I would disagree. But in all of this, the further conversation that we need to have is that here is a government that is sort of obtaining financial clearance to recruit additional security personnel into our security agencies. It has rather come to terminate over 1,500 trained security officers. You had an interview that that's the Minister for the Interior granted. And he stated in his address that and he gave a breakdown, Ghana Police Service, Ghana Immigration, Fire Service, hundreds of them, when you put them together, over 1,500 security officers, police officers, immigration officers, fire service officers, prison officers, who have been trained for over 8 months, have been terminated. And the grounds for the termination, he claims that they are diabetic, that they are 44 years and above, and that they failed WASI. We are demanding the Minister for the Interior to provide evidence of the date of birth for the 1,500 people that he has terminated, to prove that indeed they were above 44, and also the medical records of the 1,500 and over people they have terminated, to justify the medical ineligibility for which they have to be terminated. And they must also come to bring the results that they claim are below standard for the 1,500 people that he has terminated. See, what is dangerous for our security is that when you begin to introduce politics into security, it is so dangerous. It is so dangerous that when they started with nurses and terminated them, giving all kinds of reasons, they were not qualified, we stood up strongly, and then the nurses were reinstated. Then they took it to teachers. They terminated thousands of teachers across the country on grounds that they were not qualified and that there were inappropriate procedures that were deployed in their recruitment. We challenged them, and we challenged them to bring evidence. They failed. Eventually, we saw that they had done validation and they've reinstated. Now it's a little over 1,000 to reinstate the rest. In the same way, they've taken it to the security. You see, it is so dangerous and terrible, because when you go into the final analysis, and we are demanding the immediate reinstatement of over 1,500 security personnel that have received sufficient training and instead of being deployed into various steps have been terminated. We demand their immediate reinstatement. And if we can prove with any evidence of any of these claims, we will have a conversation on that. But the danger is that, and Colonel Akwatia very well will agree, that when you have trained people for 8 months, and then you are suddenly determining that they were not supposed to have been in the service, and you are discharging them in this manner, at a time when we are facing threats of violent extremism and terrorism, at a time when we are facing political vigilantism as a threat, at a time when Galamsey has become a national security threat, and conscientious miners looking for all sorts of elements to protect their concessions, at a time when we have chieftaincy disputes in various communities and towns and enclaves in this country, and arms are readily available. Having trained over 1,500 in how to shoot and kill, having trained and given them exposure to national security tactics and strategies, it is so dangerous to deploy these same into the community without wearing uniform and saying that you are not going to be allowed to work in a service. Another danger is that if these people do not control themselves, they can easily infiltrate into these areas, dangerous areas. They can easily be, radicalized if they don't control themselves. And the stigma associated with the fact that somebody has come out from his community and then told his family he's going for training into immigration, into fire service, into police, into prison, and then go get all the training, 8 months, comes back, and then only to be told that they still are no longer qualified. The stigma associated with it can get them into doing all sorts of things that will come back to haunt this country. So that decision was inappropriate. That decision was reckless. In Team Fordjour, as a politician, I may not always be there. Ministers of Interior will come and go. Defense ministers will come and go. But the institutions, our security agencies, are always there, and therefore their integrity ought not to be undermined. And for all intents and purposes, no politician went to the lab to conduct those lab tests. No politician were at the training school, admitting trainees. And it wasn't a politician who checks eligibility and to admit who is qualified into training and who is not. With the people that trained these personnel, they were not politicians. So the NDC should not do politics with our security sector. It is so dangerous. Even when you have 100 people trained and getting discharged in this manner, it's so dangerous. Therefore, they ought to have been careful and to avoid this recklessness that is going to pose potential threats to our national security. And urgent that we will not just take it hook, line, and sinker. We are expecting the minister to provide evidence of the ineligibility of all the 1,500 staff. We are meeting him on Friday. We are demanding that, and we'll have further conversation. But in the meantime, we are demanding their immediate reinstatement.
Well, stay with me. I'll come back to you for your final words. But let me bring in Colonel Festus Abuaje. We appreciate your time here on the Pulse. I just want to get your brief reaction. We're hearing from government that they're introducing the quota system, especially in all the 16 regions, and they're decentralizing the recruitment process in the security services. Commendable? You have to position rightly for me to hear you clearly. I just wanted to get
into my microphone, if I should put it that way.
Oh dear.
Anyway, what I'm saying is that I have comments to make on what the Honorable MP has said, but let me start by focusing on what the President said. And I would wish that Ghanaians would realize the idea of quota system, which by implication relates to representation, relates to access and balance, is enshrined in the Constitution, the direct principles of state policy. I think Section 35, if that is what it is, makes provision for regional balance. And the only one can implement or execute regional balance is to take the processes or initiate the processes from the region, and then maybe subsequent stages could be centralized. Now, before the white man left, the Gold Coast Regiment was full of leaders from one country. That was one example how whites recruited into the Gold Coast Regiment, which was independent Ghana, and inherited into the new armed forces. Now, over a period, recruitment is centralized in Accra. Now, whichever corner of the country, if you wanted to recruit or be recruited into the Ghana, you needed to Accra. And were instances at Elwa where over 30,000, interested persons were recruited. So the Ghana forces realized this was becoming a challenge because people were interested in joining the forces, among us as a of employment. So several years ago, the armed forces decentralized and established recruitment teams, including representation from General Headquarters Accra, that went into the region to do the first stage of recruitment before they were assembled in Accra for the final stage. To the best of my knowledge, this practice was abandoned for a greater part of the past 8 years. And we have heard anecdotes in the media about how politicians were given quotas to bring persons to be recruited into the security services. So in the first instance, the president's statement is to redress this, unprofessional way of recruiting people into the security services. I heard the Minister of Interior in the media, not that somebody told me. He gave one example of how somebody didn't have any of the requisite passes or grades and was discharged. Now, what I know is that the only offense or the only practice that is not related to being an offense during recruitment is falsifying your age. So if you are 25 and you come and declare that you are 23 or whatever, it's not an offense. But any other falsification of a person's attributes, i.e., academic qualification, is a criminal offense. So in a way, the minister was even being lenient. Persons who used, academic qualifications that they didn't have to enter the security services need to be prosecuted. Because the armed forces is not, or the security services, have ceased to be the place where, Abongo being right, their names and so on. Some are very well-educated women, including soldiers. Some soldiers are, some are, and number of officers have, that degree. So there's nothing wrong with the president's relative to the practice that were adopted during the past 8 years. Recruitment should now start from the region. The president has given the principle. He has dictated methods of executing it. But I think the president has the armed forces through the minister and the CDS to decentralize the armed forces to institute regional recruitment teams. It is not that. It is not to be interpreted to mean that MSP, DCs, or whoever they are going to bring 10 names and say, these are people who take them. No. That's what the president is saying. And indeed, if that is what the president is saying, then that is wrong. But I know that that is not what the president is saying. The president is not saying that the previous 8 years, where quotas were given to MPs, not going to transparently distribute the quotas to the 16 regions. That is how recruitment should be done.
I want you to kindly help us by positioning rightly. I am struggling to hear you, and I'm sure it's a network problem, but you're making salient points that we must listen to. And that's why I would plead with you to kindly position rightly as we try again and try to get your point on that. But I know it's early days yet. What challenges you likely foresee with the implementation of this policy, especially when recruitment process will now be ongoing in all the 16 regions of Ghana?
Is that a question for me?
Yes, please, Kennel.
Okay. I don't foresee any problem. We have done it before. The armed forces decentralized more than because prior it was taking everyone who was interested in recruitment to come to Accra. Now, what's the point? Now, these people were, so there was occasion where from one way around commission, around human station, it became a picture. So the decided we will go the route and initiate recruitment there. Now, that the armed forces provide equitable basis to offer, regional institutions for persons recruited into the armed forces. And that is consistent, as I've said, with the machines in our country. The Director of State Policy talks about risk balance. So it is not a two animals we are. But suggest for everything that this is much better arranged than the state past arrangement where politicians were bragging that they had, able to get 4,000 people into the security services. How did those people get into the security services? Now, I am told by a Minister of State that in the instance of the Ghana Military Academy, there were persons who had failed the aptitude test. Now, if all of us understand what an aptitude test is, once you fail, it means that your thought processes, the way you interpret information, is a bit, questionable. But such persons were allowed to continue with the training. Therefore, I disabused myself of the argument that once you are trained, you cannot be discharged. In fact, during training, people are discharged. Maybe not on block, but there was even one instance at the Shah Hills where a whole intake of recruits were going to be thrown out. Then there was political intervention that they must be kept. So if we're all talking about professionalism of the security services, the way to institutionalize professionalism is to take away the political influence in the way that I'm explaining, and not in the sense that the Honorable Minister is saying that politicians must not be involved. Politicians are responsible for establishing the foundation or the foundational principles consistent with the Constitution, consistent with law, consistent with practice. And there are bad practices and there are good practices. So these are the broad arguments that I think I can make.
Thank you so much, Kennel, for your time here on The Pulse. Let me wrap up briefly with Reverend Intim Fordjour. We're just hearing from Kennel tell us that there's a need to take out the political influence bit when it comes to recruitment to our security services. But this is not the first time we've heard about this. I recall so well during the vetting of Dr. Adam Buna when it comes to the Defense and Interior Committee. We heard from the minority leader just hint us that indeed some members of parliament are given slots to recruit individuals into the security service. So political influence is not something new. How do we curb that moving forward?
It is disingenuous for any suggestion to be made that the past 8 years, largely recruitments that were made to the security services were done without recourse to regional balance, but were done really by politicians. That is false, and that is debunked. It is not a thought that will even be entertained. Now, in the matter of political interference, I believe that political interference in the recruitment of security agents ought to be eliminated, diminished to a large extent, and the decisions politically motivated mass termination ought to be condemned to be able to safeguard the sanctity and independence and dignity of our security agents. I also want to say that any attempt to overlook the security threat, inherent in the reckless decision to terminate all over 1,500 fully trained security personnel, it is one that is problematic. But I must add that my position is clear, like I indicated at the outset, that any attempt to want to take the recruitment process closer to the people, I cannot disagree. I have to support. I have stated that right from the beginning. Any attempt, and again I say, that any attempt to take the recruitment process closer to the people at the regional level, and even if it's operationally feasible, to the district level, is not one that I should disagree. It's one that we all must support. But the impression should not be created that in the past, certain persons from certain regions were not considered into our security agency, and only politicians were given the opportunity to recruit. In any case, is there any particular region in this country where you would not find a politician if that assertion were even something to go by? But going forward, we cannot have a government that will terminate 1,500 and over people without credible justification and without proof, and expected that as Parliament, a body that exercises oversight, should just accept it and go away when we have precedent demonstrated in the mass termination of nurses and on the grounds of impropriety and ineligibility, and we proved and same was found to be false, and the repeated same with teachers when they were not qualified, they were pushed through back door, we challenged same, and eventually turned out with validation that they were all qualified. We have to take this with a pinch of salt, and we must insist that they are reinstated and proper validation done. And if it turns out that clearly some few fall short of the requirement as has been put forth, that will be a conversation to be had, and that I cannot defend. Until then, they have to be reinstated until they are proven. Because you can't come and cite an example of one individual from MP brought who was 44 years to generalize to say that over 1,500 were ineligible. That cannot just be accepted. So this mass termination should not be entertained in our security front at all, because they've been in power for 7 months now. And so it shouldn't be today that we should be having this conversation. It is dangerous for our cohesion, it is dangerous for our security, and in these times we find ourselves, we should be having a conversation that will enhance the efficiency and the progress of our security agency. We should support our security agencies to enhance and to safeguard our security, and not to be unduly interfering with politically motivated decisions that have no basis.
Thank you so much for your time here on The Pulse. You're still watching The Pulse. When we come back, we'll tell you about that implementation of that 1 cedi levy at the pumps today and the reaction of patrons who are feeling the pinch at the pumps. You're still watching The Pulse. Please stay with us. We'll be back after this quick turn. Thanks for staying with us here on The Pulse. Well, we stay in Parliament, where the minority say they have been vindicated after the price of fuel went up by nearly 10% at the pump following the implementation of the 1 cedi levy on every litre of fuel. The minority warned at the time the tax law was being considered in Parliament that it will lead to increase in prices, despite the Finance Minister's insistence that it will not. Minority spokesperson on the economy, Kojo Nkrumah, says the fuel price holds shows the government does not listen.
First thing to note today is that the warnings that we gave from the minority caucus have today, unfortunately, seen the light of day. We warned that, contrary to the government claim that this levy, this D-levy, will not increase fuel prices, it will increase fuel prices by 8% from day one. You remember the government went on and on and on. My brother John Jinapor was talking about the fact that it only takes an innovative government, a smart government, to be able to introduce a levy, and prices will not go up. The cat is out of the bag. Today, it's gone up by an average about 8%. That's the first point. The second point is that it's not just today. Because fuel price levels are not in our hands, any escalation on the global market, when it translates into a change in the price of the global price, will now further increase fuel prices here in Ghana. The third thing is that this is the time when, because of the strengthening of our currency, Ghanaians should have been enjoying relief. And the government is rather this time introducing this levy and then denying the people of Ghana this relief. And then finally, when you put a levy like this on fuel, fuel has a 100% cascading effect. It will affect transport. Eventually, when farmers are buying fuel for their tractors and their machines to work on their farms, it will affect it. It will then on go to affect transport of not just people, but food items. Food prices, you will then see somewhere down the line, food prices will begin to experience a price escalation, and general price levels will go up by this 8% that they have introduced.
Well, our Parliamentary Affairs correspondent, Kweku Asante, asked for a response on the NDC's claims that despite an increase in prices were still far below what the government inherited at the start of the year. This was his response.
Who knows, in a few days, a few weeks' time, you could have another challenge on the global market that will put the baseline price so high that your 13 or 12 won't matter anymore. That is why you've got to let the price levels reflect at a point where you have as minimal levies as possible, so that when disruptions come on the global market, your people are cushioned. That's what the government should allow the people to enjoy. They told us there will be no increases in prices. Today, prices have gone up by about 8%. We have said as a minority caucus, and we finished the analysis, levies on fuel aimed at recovering some sort of debt since when they were first introduced have outlived their usefulness in many instances. And we urged the government, when it first halted this, to use it as an opportunity to reconsider all of these levies and perhaps even simplify it. The government refused. We are going to bring to the attention of Parliament our analysis pretty shortly and draw attention and show the levies on fuel, because currently close to about 25 to 30% of the price that you are paying at the pump is levies. We're going to showcase to the country how many of those levies have even outlived their usefulness and ask the government to pull back on those levies so that the people of Ghana can benefit from the interventions that we have collectively done to bring this economy to where it is.
Let's now hear from the Ghana Revenue Authority, which says they are ready for the rollout, but warns government may not meet the 5.7 billion cedis targets due to 1 month suspension of the tax.
When the government was passing this act, the expectation of government was to raise 3 billion. That was we have implemented from June 16th, which is the second window. The expectation of government was 3 billion. And this expectation is premised on the consumption level of fuel at the various pumps. So now we are implementing delay in 1 month. So we are expecting that we still will get a significant figure as close to what government is expecting or
the local currency is said to have appreciated by more than 40% against the dollar.
Well, away from that, the ECG board has terminated 202 non-performing supply contracts worth $227 million, 1.7 million pounds and 4.08 million euros involving goods yet to be delivered. This was revealed by the Minister for Energy and Green Transition, John Jinapo, during his presentation at the Accountability Series. He also disclosed that an additional 145 contracts are currently under review.
If you compare this year to last year, in terms of expenditure, we are spending about 30% or 40% of what was spent in 2024 when it comes to procurement. And we are achieving better results with value for money and ensuring that we adhere to strict procurement procedures and processes. And I'm very happy that we are bringing about all this efficiency in the sector, because the gains we make would be transferred to the ordinary consumer. I can assure you that we are not going to witness the kind of procurements we witnessed over the years. And as minister, I take full responsibility to ensure that they adhere strictly to some of these measures. So far, 347 supply contracts that have failed to deliver goods within the specific areas are up for review. The goods in these containers were not part of the materials locked up at the ports. These are new containers coming up following procurements that were undertaken previously. They are yet to be delivered. The ECG board has approved the outright termination of 202 of these contracts. The total value of these contracts is estimated at 227 million United States dollars, 1.17 million pounds, 4.08 million euros. The remainder of the 145 contracts are being subjected to additional strict scrutiny and may be terminated depending on the findings. We are determined to ensure that we clean the sector.
Well, regarding the missing ECG containers, Mr. Jinapor revealed that a task force comprising of officials of the Ghana Revenue Authority and the Ministry of Finance will be established to secure presidential exemptions for the clearance of the remaining containers at the ports. Once cleared, the containers will be transferred to a bonded warehouse with the location, according to him, will be determined shortly and also revealed to the public.
Once we have that capacity, we have to procure those cylinders and put Ghana Cylinder on the path of recovery. I'm happy to announce that in the downstream sector, we've received a report of the Petroleum Downstream Sector Reform Committee. We are reviewing the downstream as well to align with current trends. And very soon we shall go to Cabinet and Parliament with a new NPA Act. Let me also commend the Bulk Oil Storage and Transportation Company for the efficiency they've brought into the company so far. I'm beginning to see very positive trends. We are already working with Burkina to ensure that we extend a pipeline from Ghana to Burkina so that we become the main hub for Burkina to uplift its products. BOSS is also working very well to ensure that we improve on our strategic stock. And I commend the MD and his deputy for showing leadership and demonstrating competence when it comes to BOST. To end it, I want to also thank the Petroleum Hub. So far, they are doing very well. They've embarked on some investment drive. We want the Petroleum Hub to anchor our petroleum sector, both upstream and downstream, and attract investments so they can help us in what we're doing to reposition Ghana as the main hub for the West African sub-region. I know that we have commenced export of power to Burkina, to Togo, to Benin, and even to Cote d'Ivoire. That's a positive trajectory. We'll continue on that. To conclude, distinguished guests, esteemed colleagues, and fellow citizens, as we reflect on the past 7 months, I am filled with a sense of optimism for the future of our energy sector. Together, we've made significant strides, and I'm proud to share our achievements. Firstly, we've stabilized our power supply. This has been a critical undertaking. I'm pleased to report that we've made considerable progress. We've worked tirelessly to ensure a consistent and reliable energy supply for all citizens. Secondly, we've focused on increasing our petroleum reserves and promoting local content. Our efforts, as I've stated, has begun to yield positive results. We are committed to building a business-friendly environment. We are working with Springfield. We are working with ENI. So far, as you may be aware, the unitization debacle, we've resolved it. We are also working with Talo to settle our issues out of court. We are in arbitration. We lost the first case. We don't want to get to the second level. We believe that we can sit around the table and resolve our differences amicably. On the ECG containers, I have received approval from the Chief of Staff, and just this morning, I had a very fruitful meeting with the Minister of Finance. All the containers that have been identified so far, we are constituting a task force led by the Deputy Minister of Energy, with Customs, with GRA, with National Security, and all the relevant agencies, ECG, on board that committee. We intend to establish a custom-bonded warehouse where we'd evacuate all the containers to that custom-bonded warehouse, take all the stock and reconcile with all the figures to determine the exact amount of containers that have been retrieved. We'll also go through Cabinet to Parliament for approval to exempt taxation on those containers, because there are some critical items in the containers. ECG will use some. The ministry will also leverage on some of the containers and embark on a massive intensification project when it comes to electricity expansion. It's not just rural extension of electricity. In the cities, some people, new developments, they do not have electricity. We cannot have all these containers stuck there whilst we spend the taxpayers' money to buy additional material.
John Jinapor also addressed ECG's revenue mobilization efforts, revealing a significant increase in revenue during the first half of this year, and he compared it to the same period last year.
This is ensuring that so far there's constant flow of cash to electricity generators, fuel suppliers, gridco, VRA, and all the other power sector players. This has also contributed largely to the stable power that we currently experience. The mechanism puts in place to ensure that there's some minimum guarantee when it comes to payments to the IPPs. And if you check this year as against last year, by the middle of the year, we've paid to IPPs an amount far exceeding what was paid to IPPs the whole of last year. And so in the first 6 months, the amount paid exceed what was paid the whole of last year. And it's because of the prudence and the stringent measures that we've put in place. We are not out of the woods in its entirety, but at least we are seeing significant progress. And if we continue on this trajectory, I'm confident that this sector will see real improvement. Under the instructions of His Excellency the President, I've been directed to review the cash waterfall mechanism allocation to increase efficiency, transparency, and equity in its operations. We are making some additional savings, and we want to ensure that those savings are applied in a judicious and efficient manner to bring about overall efficiency in the sector. I'm happy to note that as a result of these policy interventions, ECG's monthly revenues is witnessing some significant increase. This increase represents about 47.3% increment as compared to same period last year. And so as you can see, we're seeing some real significant increase in revenues.
Register for free. Choose from over 200,000 vehicles online. Get your car straight from the USA and Canada. Financing is available. Auction Expert, business you can trust.
Ministries, departments, and agencies will not get a PESWA of public funds if they do not submit their policies and programs to the National Development Planning Commission. That is the sweeping changes the former Information Minister is seeking of the Public Financial Management Act as he files a new private members bill. Fordjour Nkrumah says the goal of his bill is to block MDAs from haphazard spending and engaging in activities that are not in line with Ghana's national development goals.
Morning, I have filed processes at the Office of the Clerk to Parliament to present a private members bill, and it seeks to introduce a number of clauses or new sections. Once it becomes an act, there will be sections. It seeks to introduce new sections into the Public Financial Management Act. If you look at the current architecture of our public funding, a president is supposed to submit a 4-year plan to Parliament through the NDPC out of his manifesto, and then the ministries, departments, and agencies are supposed to develop strategic plans in consonance with that one. And the PFM requires that you do your development plans and you have it certified by the NDPC before you can get funding. Unfortunately, a number of ministries, departments, and agencies are not going through this. And that is a loophole in the law that I seek to block with this amendment. So this amendment has about 3 clauses. First, barring the Minister for Finance from funding any ministry, department, or agency that has not had its development plan certified by the NDPC. Second, barring the Minister for Finance and Controller and Accountant General and the DACF administrator from allowing the use of even internally generated funds if your national development plans or if your plans, your strategic plans, have not been certified by the NDPC. And thirdly, creating an offense that anybody who authorizes or facilitates expenditure that has not gone through this route commits an offense in accordance with Section 98 of the PFM. So yes, I have submitted a private members bill seeking to amend the PFM and introduce these 3 clauses.
My colleague Kweku Asante joins me once again from Parliament. Kweku, does Fordjour Nkrumah have the support of government? Kweku, you have to unmute for me to hear you clearly. We're just trying to touch base with my correspondent in Parliament, Kweku Asante, just to get his thoughts on some of the key concerns that Kojo Nkrumah has raised. He is proposing the introduction of a Public Financial Management Act, and he is filing that as a private member's bill. Kweku, I'm hoping I have better connection to you now. I just wanted to get your thoughts. Does he have the support of government and the majority in Parliament as well?
Well, for such a private member's bill to go through, you need the buy-in of the majority, in particular in the government, because especially of the sweeping changes, the nature of the changes that have been made to the Public Financial Management Act. The government usually likes to spearhead some of these ones. Kojo Nkrumah, in this interview, talks about how he has engaged and he has gotten a broad-based support to carry through these changes to Ghana's primary fiscal legislation and to make these sweeping changes. He's expecting that perhaps by the end of this year, Parliament will process this and he has the buy-in of the majority to get it through.
But there are also concerns that this will lead to a more bureaucratic system. What's his response to this?
Well, according to this bill, all MDAs, ministries, departments, and agencies will have to submit to the National Development Planning Commission their programs and policies for consideration. And when they are approved, that is when the finances will be made available. And that will ultimately mean that certain level of bureaucracy, more and more processes that have to be gone through before money are released. In particular, Kojo is even seeking to prescribe the use of internally generated funds by these MDAs if they do not have the approval of the NDPC on this matter. And so it will lead to a lot of bureaucracy. He says this kind of bureaucracy is important and it's not one that will stifle growth in the economy.
It stops people from doing things that they ordinarily want to do by themselves, and it compels them to do things in accordance with some laid down rules. So it's not a bad thing. But we have to go back to strengthening the national development planning agenda and ensuring that it is followed. It is the only way that we can be sure that as a collective we are going in a direction that we are comfortable with, a direction that we would like to hold ourselves accountable for over a period. The truth is that there are loopholes in getting the national development plans, the medium-term plans to function. One of them is the fact that people are still funded when they are not in conformity, which I'm blocking. Another is the fact that monitoring and evaluation, even of what is going on, is being done on an ad hoc basis, even by the same people doing their work. We are doing some research work to bring us to a point where we can tighten those rules. That may require an amendment of Act 480, not necessarily the PFM. We're doing some work, and when we get there, we'll tighten that one too. But this is all part of efforts to tighten the national development planning and implementation architecture, as well as ensuring that public resources are used effectively and efficiently in delivering on an agreed development plan. Hopeful that I'll get the buy-in from colleagues in Parliament and across the aisle on the majority side, because a matter of protecting the public purse is a matter of common interest. It's not about MPP or about NDC. This government has made strong arguments about why they also want to protect the public purse, and I believe therefore that they should see it as something that complements the efforts that they are currently undertaking. In addition to that, the engagements that I have had behind the scenes with key persons across the aisle suggest to me that eventually when the motion is ripe for being moved or the paper is ripe for being laid on the floor, I should get their support.
What exactly does these amendments seek to fix in terms of the current public financial management architecture?
It blocks a hole in the current public financial management architecture, a hole that allows ministries, departments, and agencies that have not certified their plan or their work with the NDPC, which means that whatever they are doing has not been certified as connected to the national development agenda. It blocks them from getting access to public funds. You still have ministries, departments, and agencies that have not gone through that certification process. What it means is that they are on a frolic of their own. They are doing things that they and their boards think are important, but they may not necessarily be connected to the nation's medium-term development plan by the NDPC. It is the certification process that says that this thing that you want to do, you want to build headquarters somewhere, you want to, extend some services somewhere, it fits with the national development plan. The certification process is what ensures. Now, if you don't certify and we still allow you to go and spend money building new headquarters, building new this, doing that, then what you are doing is a frolic of your own. And so what I'm doing is I'm blocking that hole. I'm also blocking the hole where MDAs spend IGF. There are a lot of MDAs who tell you that, oh, it's our own money. It's not taxpayers' money. But you see, before you collect that money, the Fees and Charges Act has to be passed. So that is public money. Its use must be in consonance with the National Development Plan.
Well, to other stories now, the Director of Policy Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation at the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Boateng, has hailed the gradual integration of artificial intelligence in health diagnosis as a transformative breakthrough for Ghana. He says AI-powered tools have the potential to boost diagnostic accuracy by some 40%, significantly expanding access to quality healthcare even in underserved local communities. Dr. Boateng made these remarks at the launch of the second China-West Africa Medical and Health Industry Expo in Accra. There's more in the following report.
The second edition of the China-West Africa Medical and Health Industry Expo has been launched through a joint collaboration between the Ghana Health Service and the Health Community of West Africa, HECOA. The event also brought together key players in the health sector, who also showcased cutting-edge AI-powered portable diagnostic equipment. Vice President of HECOA, Prince Dogbe, explained that the goal is to attract 100 Chinese medical equipment manufacturers to establish operations in Ghana, serving as a hub for advanced healthcare technology across the West African sub-region.
They are bringing together 100 manufacturers from China in medical technologies. And the objective is that we want to collaborate with the Ghana Health Service, where these manufacturers will not just come for the exhibition and then go, but will set up enterprises here and then also provide various hospitals across the country with advanced medical equipment in artificial intelligence. We want to establish AI treatment centers across the country and then use Ghana to be the technology hub center to also channel to the other sub-region countries. So we are looking at a comprehensive and holistic approach towards advancing healthcare and then providing all healthcare solutions, not only for medical technology, but also looking at the traditional Chinese medicine, how we can integrate it into our local system. We also look at the pharmaceutical industry where medicines will be given. So the whole focal point is to launch the AI Medical Expo that will be happening next month at the Grand Arena of the Accra International Conference Center.
Commenting on the expo's significance, Dr. Boateng, the Director of Policy Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation at the Ghana Health Service, described AI's growing role in Ghana's health diagnostics as a game changer. He said it could boost diagnostic accuracy by up to 40% and improve access to quality healthcare even in remote areas.
As far as I'm concerned, it goes to improve the availability in terms of numbers and the quality of equipment in Ghana in terms of diagnostics and other things when it comes to healthcare delivery. And I think it's going to be a game changer, especially for me in the area of artificial intelligence. But when artificial intelligence comes in, like you rightly said, the ability to make accurate diagnosis is going to be about 40%, using the case of TB as a proxy. And the fact that now, because of technology, you can take X-rays to a community that may not be easily accessible by the normal X-rays you know. I mean, these are portable structure, you take it there. And the good thing is that not just taking the X-ray, but with artificial intelligence, they can do the diagnosis. They can do a write-up, which a doctor has to do. And so for me, this is quite impressive. It's going to be a game changer.
The expo, which will take place in Accra from August 20th to 22nd, is expected to host exhibitors from China and healthcare providers from across West Africa. For Joy News, Carlos Caloni, Accra.
Now to our Habitat series. Just months to his wedding, Bride Ewusi thought he had found the perfect apartment. A modest two-bedroom apartment to start life with his bride. He handed over 19,500 Ghana cedis to a rental agent and a man who introduced himself as the landlord. But when it was time to move in, Bride discovered the painful truth. His new home was actually a movie house. My colleague Noella Kariyali filed this report for our Habitat series.
I'm not a man, but most men preparing to get married will tell you that one of the first things they want to secure is a home, a place to start life with your partners. Now imagine diligently saving up to 19,500 Ghana cedis, only to be swindled by the very people you trusted to give you that home. Now that's the story of Bright Ewusi.
It began with hope. Bright Ewusi, a hard-working young man, had saved diligently to secure a new beginning with his girlfriend.
Around that time, I was about getting married. I was preparing to get married, and then by then I was living in a chamber and hall. So I went online. I saw this 2-bedroom apartment at Shimota area. The guy I got in contact with was the agent. The apartment was going for 2,000, and then I asked for a reduction of 1,500. So the agent told me that I can come and then view the apartment. Okay, when I come and view the apartment and I am comfortable and everything, then we'll take it from there.
The agent first took Bright to inspect the 2-bedroom apartment. It seemed perfect, clean, well kept, just what he wanted.
It was a story building with people in the house, okay? And when I was entering the house, I saw some caretaker at the entrance of the apartment. I even greeted him. Then I think my apartment was upstairs. It was on the last floor, okay? So I entered the house, I saw people at the house and everything. So I checked it and everything was okay. So the agent said that the owner of the apartment does not live there. He lives at North Carnation. So it means that if I want to make payments, we would have to go and meet the landlord. Then I can make a payment.
Once Bright expressed interest, the agent offered to introduce him to the supposed landlord at his residence.
So just when we got there and I parked, then I saw the man coming out from his car in a rush, wearing those man's holding Bible. So he was like, also sorry. So then I asked that, okay, since we are here, can we go to the house, sit down, and then talk? And he said, no, he's in a hurry. So we should sit in his car.
What made you feel convinced that indeed he was the landlord?
The man comes across as a very, very responsible man. Very responsible. He was wearing a blue t-shirt with a trap, with a shoe, and he had a coat with Bible.
As expected, the meeting took place, but under rather unusual circumstances. In total, Bright paid 18,000 Ghana cedis advance payment, plus 1,500 Ghana cedis for air conditioners to be fixed. The deal was done, or so he thought.
He's supposed to give me my tenancy agreement, but I have to go, come the next day, and then come for the tenancy agreement because I can see he's in a rush. So then we just put that one on the side. We had to talk about the payments. So I actually gave him cash.
Okay.
So I made the payments. He gave me a receipt. They moved just when...
Right after collecting the money?
Right after collecting the money, they moved on a very top speed.
Like a punch to the gut, Bright was hit with the truth. The landlord's residence was actually a movie house.
I started calling this landlord. I called. No one was answering. Then I decided to call the agent. The agent too was not answering. Later, when I tried calling again, their phones were off. I kept on asking myself a lot of questions. So I said, okay, let me go to his house. So I got there, I'm like, oh, Mr. Eno. Then the guy looked at me and like, who is Mr. Eno? I a movie house. The landlord's house was a movie house.
Bright turned to the police for justice. First at the local station, then a petition to the IGP.
That very moment, I went to Mile 7 police station to make a complaint. And then, funny enough, when I got there, and then I was making my complaint, they were just looking at me and laughing. Before I got there, about 2 people had already been there to make complaint about them being about the similar issue.
Bright became his own detective, following digital footprint, asking questions, and refusing to let go.
I just picked my petition and then I dropped it on Facebook. Then one girl contacted me, tried to describe the agent to me. So the Safoa lady
had a picture of the landlord. So she sent the picture to me to confirm if it's the guy. I say, yeah, that's the guy. When we got there, he paid about half of it. At the period, I felt sorry for him. So I think I took about half of the money and then I just left the rest.
But the financial loss was just the surface. The trauma of betrayal cuts deeper than the pocket.
Honestly, when this thing happened to me, I didn't feel like going to look for an apartment myself. Okay, so...
Why didn't you feel like that?
I didn't want to go through that trauma again. Okay, I didn't want to go through that process again. So when we had to look for this apartment, I gave it to my wife to handle it. From here, we wanted to move to a different apartment, but it becomes very difficult for me to even go and speak with a genuine landlord or agent to speak with him or her about an apartment. So for some time now, when it comes to renting and I just don't want to get involved. I want someone else to do those process for me.
For Brighter, we see it wasn't just about losing money. It was about losing trust, peace, and momentarily losing himself. It took relentless personal effort for him to reclaim a portion of what was stolen from him. But not everybody is able to have the means or strength to do same. And until Ghana's housing system is cleaned up and better regulated, stories like Bright's will keep repeating. I'm Noella Kareniali, and this is Fordjour News.
Well, crashes involving motorcycles, popularly known as Okada, are spiraling. In just the first 2 months of this year, 1,079 crashes were recorded, a sharp rise from 883 during the same period in 2024. It's a grim sign that indiscipline among motor riders appears to be accelerating faster than the country's response. My colleague Emmanuel Jivenu has more in our feature titled Red Means Go.
At major intersections in Accra, the red light does not always mean stop. It is often just a color on a pole, and for some commercial motorcycle riders, popularly known as Okada, it is a race against the law and sometimes against life itself. In broad daylight at La Paz, a motorcyclist jammed the red light, swerved onto the pedestrian pathway, and rode straight into oncoming traffic. I saw it happen and we followed him.
It's our turn to go, you understand, for the U-turn. And that's why I come to that line where the cars they've blocked that road, and I'm here is my working place. So that's why I said no, they make a come because here there is my area. So I go feel move come in it.
But was it right?
No, it's not right. They come around there, it's not right.
Yeah.
I was having train.
At Medina Zongo Junction, the story was same, if not worse. Riders dart across intersections, one narrowly escaped being hit, not once, but twice, as the light stays red. Paul Kwesi has been riding for more than a decade. Medina Zongo is his base.
Watching was it balance block? We don't spare no watching. A minimum of license. Joe, oh, away, no came. Every time me came on soon. More lances, more strong, Bianju, Utimia, Utumi Kemakazi, Mraman Chessy, Utuki, Mrabian Chessa, is a way pressing me out Ubuapu.
In April 2022, the Ghana Police Service, under the then IGP, Dr. George Akufo-Dampare, launched Operation Pari, which stands for Police Action Against Riders and Discipline, came in response to alarming data. Motorcycles were the leading cause of road accidents-related deaths and the second leading cause of injuries in the country. Buzanga remembers what the Pari initiative did for his own riding culture.
The introduction of Dampare
then this red light issue came into effect, and very serious. We have been educated, and due to Dampari education, gradually, we will stop at the red light, and there is no police harassment. You see, and it has reduced a lot of this dying accident. If you don't wear helmet, it's your own case, but obey the red light. That is the law of Dampari, and this law too has benefited us a lot.
Say traffic the soa, Tamna Dampari no. Or the Mrabi too was say a so rider obi engineer. Police ni bia obeju Usika bibia make sure so obewuni din no be report e be treasure police ni answer the reason oji usika no Dampari was saying travelers do so ready obi ejina or the Mrabi obi ejina ba okọ Accra see a omujanya kwan echi moto the motor phones police phone no mudane.
Police motorbike teams were stationed at key intersections. Riders were educated. For a while, the change was visible, but 3 years on, the brakes seemed to have failed.
Because of this policeman in my mind, I decided to swerve one car, not knowing that the one taking this way is green for them. You see, that was my first injury, if you can see here and here. That was my first escape of death.
Oh, I'm of Regency, anyhow, as in the breeze, see what ready to pass one who came be able to cross no what I found police here. Regency, the guy couldn't pay breeze.
According to data from the National Road Safety Authority and the Ghana Police Service, 3,674 clashes were reported, up nearly 8% from the same period last year. These crashes involved over 6,100 vehicles and left 4,287 people injured. Even more alarming, 752 lives were lost, a 23.5% increase in deaths. These numbers paint a clear picture. Road safety is deteriorating, and unless stricter measures are enforced, particularly among vulnerable groups like motorcycle riders, the toll on human life would only continue to rise. Critics warn, without a clear mechanism to ensure that all road users, especially motorcycle riders, strictly adhere to traffic regulations, legislation could worsen the already fragile road safety situation. The question is not just about enforcement. It is about whether Ghana is ready to pull the brakes on a growing culture of recklessness. A forward-looking solution must combine strict licensing, rider education, visible policing, and technology-driven enforcement. Until then, every red light ignored is a warning signal we cannot afford to keep missing. Emmanuel Jivenu, Joy News, Accra.
You're still watching The Pulse here on the Joy News channel. Please stay with us. We'll be back after this quick turn. Thanks for staying with us here on The Pulse. So other stories now. They are sold on nearly every street in Accra. Fresh, sweet, and satisfying. But once the coconut water is gone and the flesh scooped out, what's left behind is becoming a growing environmental concern. But Akwatia Crafts is finding innovative ways to transform this waste into something beautiful and sustainable. Esther Nkrumah has more in today's Climate Focus series.
It's always refreshing having a cool coconut drink on a sunny day. But have you ever wondered what happens to the coconut husk when you're done enjoying this delicious drink? While some are being discarded inappropriately by the roadside, other people are finding innovative ways to transform these coconut shells. Join me on a journey to how these coconut hats are being transformed. Come along.
If you ever traveled along the Adabraka Road opposite the Iran Hospital in Accra, you're likely to have seen it. A towering heap of coconut husk, stacked high. What could have been used for business or housing is now blanketed with discarded coconut waste. But behind this pile is Ayoko, who has spent years collecting this husk. She tells me what first inspired her to start this.
Oh, I bet it's 50 years and almost cotton we are. No the good circle no na so to say na ya some obi mu dench ni niama. The time start we you know. Almost fangu got temu bi no be dench ni niama no. Nti omu nyina de ba. Omu di ba be bua. Omu so omu pebia, omu di ye ejuma wo fati no so abesisa. Yeah, omu di yes omu si omu di kwa omu nyam fertilizer omu di dua nyama.
What if this waste could be turned into something better? Ghanaians consume coconut every day.
QuickBooks gives me the superpower to automate my invoices, track expenses, and get paid fast, so I can get back to what I love. Get more done in less time with QuickBooks Online.
Some local innovators are choosing a different path. Akwatia Craft is transforming discarded coconut shells into beautiful jewelry, bowls, and souvenirs. Anne is an administrative assistant at Akwatia Craft. She explains the motivation behind their innovations.
Like I said earlier on, we're trying to save the planet. So they are considering it as waste. And even if it is waste, it shouldn't be on the streets. You understand? So we will have to recycle them. What really inspired Akwatia Crafts or Akwatia is the abundance of discarded coconut shells in Ghana. So we saw the need to transform these coconut shells, which many consider as waste, into something beautiful or useful or sustainable products. So we can talk of some of the products like the cups, the bowls, the containers, the keychains, jewelry, kitchen wares and the rest. So many products is what comes out from coconut shells, but people don't know this, and then they throw it out. This is also a cup.
Anne also walks me through the process from which raw coconut shell is transformed into finished products.
So with the coconuts, first off, we buy them whole from the farmers or the local market vendors. And then when we bring them, we make sure they are mature because of the thickness. When we bring them, we have to sort them, which one is good to be worked on. After that, we try to sort them out and then clean them as much as possible. And then we do the cutting and then the shaping into their design forms. And we bring them out to be smoothened and polishing. We also use the beeswax to line them in to prevent any leakages. Like I said earlier on, we're trying to save the planet. So they are considering it as waste. And even if it is waste, it shouldn't be on the streets. You understand? So we will have to recycle them. We bring them out and we don't use those ones for cups or goblets which people eat from. No. Rather, we use them for the jewelries, the chains, the buttons, the keychains, the buttons, and then the other jewelries.
But this is not just about coconut shells. It's about something much bigger.
I mean, we want to eradicate the use of plastics. We want to take it out from there. So we want to, by bringing or initiating the use of coconut shells, which is of great sustainability. I mean, it doesn't even spoil or anything, if I may say so. It doesn't really spoil. So it's durable. It's durable. So we want to eradicate the use of plastics, which is even harmful to the earth. So we want to take that out and then introduce more of the coconut shells.
Farouk is one of the artisans at Akwatia Craft. He's been working here for the past 3 years, turning waste into something valuable.
I was surprised. Actually, I didn't know that coconut can be used for some things like this. So I think after you cut the coconut and take the meat out, the rest is bola. I never knew it can be used for some things to be useful like this. Yes, actually, it's helping. It helps us to the dumping of the coconut on the roadsides and the roadside, the people that are selling the coconuts, the fresh coconuts by the roadsides, when they sell the shells, we pick it up and then we dry it. When it gets dry, then we use those thrown up coconut shells to do the earrings and then the key holders. So I think it's helping. It helps us to clean the environment.
As Ghana moves to ban styrofoam plastics, described by President Mahama as one of the most pernicious polluters, small initiatives like Akwatia Craft is already showing the way forward. By turning coconut waste into everyday items, they are offering a cleaner, homegrown alternative to plastic. For Joy News, Esther AC Nkrumah's report.
My colleague Esther Nkrumah filing that report. And that's how we wrap up the polls for today. I'm handing over the baton to Business Live team. Pius Kujabaka will be in the studio shortly to bring you all that is happening in the business world. My name is Faustina Safo. Have a pleasant day as you enjoy the rest of our programs. Bye.